He set a trap for the enemy, but the one who fell in wasn't what he expected. Sergeant Damon Vex didn't talk much to other people, but he had long, involved conversations with his minds. Each one got a name. This morning, the one nestled beneath. The false rock outcropping near the ridge was called Brenda. She'd been cranky during calibration. Damon didn't blame her. The winds up here played havoc with the proximity sensors. "Behave, Brenda," he muttered, crouched in the morning dust, pressing a calibration chip into place. "Don't startle any squirrels." He straightened, glanced at the pale orange sky, and wiped grit from his gloves. Planet Ilara wasn't much to look at: peeling rock layers, whispering grass that grew in stubborn, fibrous clumps, and a humidity that turned every uniform into a wet sock by midday. But it had become home in the way jail cells eventually feel familiar. He'd been here 96 days. 96 days of patrols, field rations, paranoid dreams, and one ghost. Officially, she was classified as Mobile Alien Element 17 Delta, a label so dry it sounded like it had been sneezed out by a bureaucrat. Unofficially, around the barracks, she was the Wraith. No one ever saw her except in flashes, a silhouette on the horizon, a shimmer between sensor lines. She never left bodies, just confusion. No weapons fire, no engagements. A sensor dome would suddenly short. A ration depots. Lock code would vanish from memory. Someone's sock drawer would be reorganized alphabetically. That last one might have been a prank, but Vex took it as proof she had a sense of humor. He both respected and resented that. His trap network now spanned half a kilometer. 72. Interconnected trigger paths, seismic sensors, pressure plates, pulse wave lures. Vex spent hours watching birds try to land and immediately regret it. The Wraith, of course, never showed. That almost made it worse. It felt personal, like she was letting him dig his own grave one snare at a time. He made it back to his outpost just as the sun began its strange dual descent. Ilara's twin stars always dipped at skewed angles, casting double shadows that made everyone's depth perception suffer. Inside, the outpost hummed its usual tired song, low-power hum, flickering wall panels, the smell of desperation with a hint of stale protein. "Any updates?" Vex asked, mostly out of habit, as he dropped into the chair by the console. The AI assistant responded in its usual dry tone. "A squirrel detonated Brenda 26 minutes ago." He sighed. "Damn it, Brenda." "You should calibrate for smaller mammals," the AI offered helpfully, "or teach the squirrels to respect military engineering." "Unlikely. They have tiny, disrespectful brains." He almost smiled. Almost. Later, as the wind howled past the outpost walls like a drunk opera singer, Vex reviewed the latest sensor logs. One anomaly blinked back at him. A faint pulse signature, barely there but consistent, a ripple through a zone that had been cleared and re-cleared. No wildlife, no wind shifts, no atmospheric disturbances. Just a single pressure drop followed by a fractional heat bloom. He zoomed in. There it was again, a footprint. Light, too light for any of the soldiers, and too defined to be coincidence. He felt it again, that tight curl in his gut. Not quite excitement, not quite dread. The Wraith had passed through recently, maybe an hour ago. She was taunting him. He was out the door in seconds, scanner in one hand, pulse rifle in the other. The ridgeline path crunched underfoot. The sun twins dipped lower, and shadows began to twist. He kept low, moving in careful strides past the red ferns that looked like they wanted to sue for copyright infringement against Earth's asparagus. The trap field was quiet, deceptively so. He paused, crouched by one of the lures. Geraldine, this one, a lovely little pit disguised as a mossy hollow. The sensors weren't tripped, but something had been moved. A rock shifted slightly to the left, almost imperceptibly, almost. "She left me a sign," he muttered, "a breadcrumb." "Incorrect," the AI chirped in his ear, thanks to the integrated comms. A breadcrumb is typically edible and not made of granite. Shut up, Marvin. I'm not Marvin. You are now. He followed the path carefully. His traps were still active, their digital signals pulsing a rhythm only he could read. Nothing had been sprung, nothing. Then he heard it, a soft, whispering click. He froze. There it was again. Click. And then a thud. He spun, eyes narrowing, pulse rifle raised. Silence. Then a voice from behind a tree, upside down. "Well," it said, cheerfully, "this is embarrassing." He pivoted sharply and found her, dangling from a snare, arms bound against her sides, legs swinging gently in the breeze. Hair like spun silver, falling toward the ground. Her ears, long and tapered, twitched, in what might have been annoyance, angled sharply outward from her head. Her eyes were gold, catching the last of the sunlight in a way that made her look almost ethereal, alien, certainly, but not monstrous. "You," he said. She looked down at him, well, up at him, technically. "Took you long enough," she said, and grinned. He blinked. "You walked into it." Technically, I did a celebratory twirl, and my foot brushed the perimeter trigger. "Precision work, by the way. You named this one Margaret?" "Margaret's got a bite." He stared at her, baffled. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to be furious, stoic, dangerous, not chatty. "You're not struggling." "Well, no. I'm kind of enjoying the breeze. And I'd rather not yank my shoulder out just to make a point. Also, you might shoot me." He didn't lower the rifle. "Why are you here?" "Why now?" She tilted her head. "Honestly, I got curious. You were building such a lovely garden of explosives. It seemed rude not to stop by." He blinked again. "You came here to compliment my traps?" She smiled. "And to see the man behind them. You talk to your minds, by the way. It's cute." Brenda was especially chatty. He narrowed his eyes. "You've been watching me." "Don't flatter yourself." "I was mostly watching Brenda." There was a long silence between them, broken only by the faint swaying of her body in the trap. He lowered the rifle. "All right," he muttered. "Let's get you down." "Oh, don't rush. Margaret and I are bonding." "You want to hang there all night?" She wiggled her feet a little. "But also, no." He deactivated the snare with a flick of his wrist. She dropped lightly, cat-like, onto the ground, didn't flinch, didn't run, just straightened her tunic and gave him a little bow. "You've got questions," she said. "Hundreds." "Great. I've got riddles." He stared. She grinned. And somewhere deep inside, Damon Vex felt the distinct troubling certainty that his plan had worked entirely too well. The cell wasn't particularly threatening, more like a very stubborn hotel room. Vex had tuned the force field to a soft blue shimmer, intimidating enough to say this is prison, but gentle enough to say we're not savages. The alien girl, Inari, she had finally offered, paced inside with the air of someone browsing furniture. He watched her from the control room, chewing a nutrient bar that tasted vaguely like glue with ambition. "You're not going to interrogate me," she called through the field. "I'm considering it," he replied without looking up. "I've always wanted to be interrogated. It's on my bucket list, right between eat a terrestrial mango and win an argument." "With a bureaucrat," Vex sighed, took another bite of glue. "We don't use torture." Disappointing. I had a whole monologue prepared. She smiled at him through the shimmer. It was an infuriatingly calm smile, like she wasn't the one trapped, like she was the host, and he was the unwelcome dinner guest refusing to leave. He scrolled through sensor logs, pretending to work. Her pulse rate was normal, breathing steady, not even a twitch of adrenaline. The restraint field had caught her with perfect non-lethal timing. No bruises, no broken skin, just a deeply inconvenient reality. "So," she said, tapping the invisible wall with a long finger, "do I get a towel, or should I just exfoliate with the air? You're not dirty." "I fell into a trap in the dirt. You think I emerged fresh and dewy?" Vex rolled his eyes and hit a few buttons. A square opened in the wall and released a folded cloth. Inari clapped once, delighted. "See? Hospitality. I knew you had it in you." He walked away before she could say anything else that might make him question the rules of engagement. The next few hours went predictably. She examined the cell like she was reviewing an Airbnb, poked at the field edges, whistled at the pulse sync nodes, tried to chat with the AI. "Hello, machine. What's your name?" The AI naturally did not respond. "Is this Marvin?" she asked. "No," Vex said from the console. "Marvin's the one I argue with. This one's the quiet sibling. Doesn't like you." She squinted at the ceiling. "I think Marvin's jealous." He almost laughed. Didn't. Almost. Around hour 6, he brought her a meal pack, neutral flavor, heat-stabilized, the kind that required 2 enzymes and a bit of hope to digest properly. She took it like he was offering her a puzzle box. "This looks edible." "It is. Is this the part where you poison me?" "No, that's breakfast." She grinned. "You're warming up. You're still a prisoner." She inspected the food carefully, then took a bite, chewed once, twice, expression unreadable. Then, "This tastes like melted batteries. And is that disappointment you seasoned this with? Heartbreak?" "That explains the bitterness." He turned to leave again, but she stopped him with a quieter tone. "You're not what I expected." He paused. "What did you expect? A zealot, or a sadist, or maybe someone with a tattoo of their gun?" He turned back, slowly. "I didn't expect you to talk this much. I'm nervous." "About what?" "I haven't figured that part out yet." He didn't respond, just stood there staring at her. The room hummed around them, low and steady, like the planet itself was exhaling. "You let yourself get caught," he said eventually. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat down on the bench, folded her legs under her like someone settling in for tea and secrets. "I didn't trip over that snare by accident," she said. "I know. I thought I'd be able to talk to someone once inside. There are better ways. Not on this planet," she said. "And not with humans who see long ears and think, 'target.'" By the 4th day of captivity, Inari had adopted a plant. It was technically a mold cluster growing along the humid seam of the lower vent shaft. Most soldiers didn't notice things like that because most soldiers didn't squat in alien containment cells and narrate the growth patterns of biofungus like it was a soap opera. Vex watched her from the command deck, arms crossed, debating the ethical implications of falling asleep while your prisoner named sentient rot Fluffernutter. "He's been growing toward the light," she explained, when Vex finally gave in and asked, "I think he's aspiring. Maybe one day he'll be a moss carpet or a senator." "Fascinating," Vex muttered. "Next time we take prisoners, I'll be sure to offer a hydroponic starter kit. I could really use a bonsai. Something calming. Or a cactus. Fits. The theme, you're not here for interior decorating, not just for that." She had begun referring to the force field as the shimmer, as though it were a sentient roommate who disapproved of her diet. Vex caught her once trying to convince the shimmer to open early because, and he quoted, "I'm 78%. Trustworthy now? Statistically speaking, that's nearly heroic." The quiet between them was beginning to feel oddly companionable, an unspoken truce, traded silences. Not quite friendship, but definitely a treaty negotiated with sarcasm and too many shared meal rations. He caught himself bringing her better protein packs, the ones with simulated citrus glaze. She pretended not to notice, which meant she absolutely noticed and would lord it over him eventually. "I've been thinking," she said one afternoon, while performing an interpretive dance that involved waving a fork around like it was both antenna and sword. "You haven't asked me about my people. I've been waiting for the lies to curdle." "Well, good news. They've matured nicely. Age deception pairs well with cynicism." Vex tapped a panel. "Tell me anyway." She sat, more serious now, hands folded on her knees. Her gold eyes lost some of their shine, like she'd put away the mask of humor for a moment and dug into something less comfortable. "My people call ourselves the Ashari," she said. "Not the name you filed in your databases." That one was clipped from a scan drone and translated through 3 dead dialects. Language drift, more like lazy espionage. You hear what you want, twist the rest to match your fears. He raised an eyebrow. "You're blaming us for mistranslation? Blaming the entire universe? No one listens anymore. It's all static and countermeasures." He let her keep talking. There was something deeper now, something she'd been weighing in her throat since the moment they met. "We weren't always ghosts. We used to share this region of the galaxy openly, not in war, in trade, in curiosity. But then humans expanded like wildfire through dry brush, and your command didn't like unanswered questions. We became shadows. Easier to fear something you can't understand." Vex frowned. "We made contact on 5 neutral systems. They all ended in conflict." "Yes, because your soldiers saw ears and shimmer tech and assumed we were invaders, not travelers. You've hacked our systems, stolen supplies, because you built walls, so we became cracks." It was quiet for a long beat. He stood, hands on the control edge, jaw tight. "You snuck onto a military outpost. You let yourself be caught. What was the point of all this?" She looked up. "To stop the war that's coming, or at least stall it." Vex stared. "How?" "By talking to the one human who actually talks back." "That's a terrible strategy. Do you have a better one?" He didn't, which was exactly the problem. Later that evening, during system diagnostics, the outpost's proximity alarms flickered once, then stabilized. Vex dismissed it as a gust scan, common in these regions where the wind liked to cosplay as rogue wildlife. But then it happened again. A blip, a pulse, something watching. Not close, but not far enough. When the patrol ship landed, dust spiraling. In twin funnels around its legs, Inari stood by the back wall, quiet. "You're going to give me to them," she said. "It's protocol. They'll take me apart. They're not monsters. They won't see me, not the way you did." He hesitated. Just for a second, she noticed. "That's all I needed to know," she said. The doors opened. 2 officers in white armor stepped in. One carried a binding collar, the other a data wand. Sergeant Vex didn't move. "Prisoner ready for transfer?" one of them asked. Vex looked at Inari, looked at the field. He didn't say yes, he said wait. And for the first time in weeks, he wasn't entirely sure which side he was on anymore. The officer holding the binding collar had the grim posture of a man who'd once tried smiling and hadn't liked the results. His armor, pristine and precise, reflected the sterile light of the outpost walls. "Sergeant," the officer said, clipped and sure, "we have orders to transport the prisoner to Command Delta 3 for immediate intel processing." Vex didn't look at Inari. "I read the orders. Then let's proceed. Something's off." The officer blinked. "Excuse me?" "There's been motion on the ridge. Unidentified. My sensors registered cloaked pulses 2 nights in a row." "You're on a border, Moon. Wildlife interference is expected." This wasn't wildlife, unless foxes are developing stealth drives and anti-scan plating. The second officer sighed audibly. "With all due respect, Sergeant, the longer we delay, the greater the risk to mission integrity." Inari, still behind the force field, cleared her throat gently. "I'm just going to throw this out there. What if we all pretended I was a very cooperative fungus and left me right here to ferment?" Vex ignored her. "I need more time," he told them. "You've had 6 days. She's been talking." "Then record her. And send the logs. This isn't a courtship ritual, Sergeant." He met the officer's eyes, unblinking. "You've read her file. Do you really think Command will bother with translation before they start pulling things out of her brain?" Silence, thick and still. The second officer shifted uncomfortably. Inari held up a hand. "Small clarification. I would very much like to keep all parts of my brain in their current configuration." The first officer finally turned to her. Alien subject. Under Treaty C-91, you are to be detained under Article 6 Alpha of the Interspecies Contingency Protocol. Oh, stars, stop, she said. You're doing that thing where every syllable sounds like paperwork. Can we not skip to the part where you make vague threats and I roll my eyes dramatically? The second officer almost smirked. Almost. Then remembered he wasn't supposed to. Vex sighed. I've got a better idea. Sergeant, I'm invoking Article 12. The silence that followed could have powered a small city. You can't be serious, the lead officer said. She surrendered herself under neutral circumstances. She hasn't committed an act of violence. She's been cooperative. That qualifies her for diplomatic hold under Article 12. That's not how Article 12 works. According to subsection 2, I'm allowed discretionary judgment if command isn't within immediate reach and the prisoner shows signs of diplomatic initiative. She called herself a fungus. Fluffernutter is a very promising ambassador, Inari added helpfully. The officers looked at each other, then at Vex, then back at each other, as if silently agreeing that arguing with someone clearly this stubborn might result in blood pressure spikes. We'll need authorization, the lead said finally. Already sent the request, Vex replied, and if it's denied, I'll turn her over myself. He wasn't sure why the lie came so easily. It didn't even taste like one. Maybe because some part of him had decided days ago that she didn't belong in a box surrounded by scalpels and cold light. As the officers departed with reluctant agreement to await authorization, Vex found himself alone with Inari again. The force field hummed between them, but somehow the barrier felt less solid than before. You know they'll come back, she said quietly. I know. You know what happens when they do. Maybe. She stepped closer to the shimmer, close enough that the blue light painted her features in soft luminescence. Thank you for buying time I probably don't deserve. You might surprise yourself. Damon, she said, using his first name for the first time. The sound of it in her voice made something shift in his chest. Whatever happens next, this meant something. You listening, me talking, it meant something. He looked at her through the barrier, this impossible woman who had walked into his trap and somehow caught him instead. Yeah, he said. It did. Outside, Ilara's twin suns set in their strange, skewed dance, casting double shadows across a world where nothing was quite what it seemed, and in the space between hunter and hunted, between duty and desire, something new was being born, fragile as gossamer, strong as gravity, and absolutely terrifying in its implications.